So what is up guys, Nick here helping you to master your technology. I've been using smartphones for well over 10 years now, and I learned from a few mistakes along the way. The first mistake that will cost you in buying a smartphone is buying a size that is too large. Now, Apple has been going the way of the big phones lately, and it's not pleasing a lot of their older customers that liked their smaller phones, but you still might be enticed by such a maximum sized iPhone XS Max, for example, but later on you might regret that and you probably figured you probably should have went with something like the iPhone XS. So the next major phone buying mistake you can buy if you do not pay attention is a case. Now, this is a case for the XS Max. This phone was over $1,000 and I made sure that I had a case and screen protector pre-ordered in my hands before I even received this phone. You should have a case on these phones day one. Now, if you're the type of person who doesn't like to use cases, then consider a skin at least, because the repair cost on these phones is skyrocketing year by year, going higher and higher than ever. And why would you want to pay $1,000 and then have to fix your phone just because you didn't pay $9 to get a case or something like that? So definitely it will cost you if you don't get some sort of protection on your phone, because as focused as we can be, as smart as we think we are, we all fall a little bit, out of it sometimes and might drop our phones. The next phone buying mistake that will cost you is not paying attention to the carrier that you're signing up with. Now, for example, if you go with Verizon, you end up not liking Verizon. It might be a little bit harder to get out if you go postpaid than if you went with a prepaid carrier. For example, prepaid is pretty easy to get out of, but if you do get involved with postpaid, it's a little bit trickier. You could still get out, but it's a little bit trickier. There's some fees and things like that, especially if you're doing installment plans on your phone. So do keep in mind to pay attention which carrier you go with before buying a phone. So the next phone buying mistake you can make is buying a super old phone. Now, this is worse on non-iPhones, but I have an iPhone 6 here to discuss this point. Now, I made a video a while ago talking about why you shouldn't buy the iPhone 6, and a lot of people don't listen and they say, I don't care what you say, Nick, I'm still gonna buy it. And well, to them, I say you're gonna learn from your own mistake. This phone is a good example because it's a kind of a trickster. It looks very similar to the 6S, which has a much improved processor in the Apple A9 CPU, and it looks kind of identical from the front to the iPhone 8 even. So, a lot of people will look at this and be like, that's gonna be a decent phone, but really this phone is not great at all. It's pretty slow, pretty laggy at this point, and it has really low RAM. So be careful when you're buying super old phones. This can cost you huge headaches in terms of storage, in terms of, just being super fast, keeping up with today's, applications and stuff like that. And it could be a very regretful experience. So keep in mind how old the phone is that you're buying. So the next phone buying mistake that will cost you is buying a phone with storage that is too low. The iPhone SE right here, you can see 32 gigabytes, definitely is not enough for keeping the phone a long time. The Galaxy Note 9 over here, 447 gigabytes available, plus expandable memory right here, up to 256 gig in mine, but you could put 512 gigs in there. So really, this can cost you huge in the long term if you store a lot of photos and videos, which people use their smartphones so much these days. I do recommend you get the storage capacity that is definitely gonna be right for you. I think most people 64 should be enough, but coming up in 2020, it's probably gonna go to a standard 128 gigabytes. So keep that in mind. So the next phone buying mistake is to confuse cameras. So getting the cameras with 48 megapixels and 16 megapixel dual camera, and then you see the iPhone XR, for example, with a single camera, or other phones with a single camera. This is a trick. You wanna make sure that you're getting a phone with a quality camera. I would take the XR's camera any day over like 25, 30 of these, cheaper Chinese phones that have 48, 32 megapixel cameras and triple cameras. They're all pretty weak, a lot of them. So, I'll just rather have a really good single camera. So make sure you're looking at quality, because you can be disappointed even though you have 3 cameras on a phone versus 1. And oftentimes, if you pay attention to the reviews, you'll see people praising something like the Pixel 3 AXL. I've even praised it because it might be a single camera, but it has a high res zoom feature where you can, punch in a little bit. It doesn't have telephoto, but it does some things with computational photography that make this much better than even a camera like that with its own dedicated lens. So at the same time, really pay attention to quality when you're looking at these cameras. It's a huge phone buying mistake that could be the difference between loving your camera on your phone and having all these cameras, but you think they're all pretty whack. So the next phone buying mistake is always having to have the latest and greatest phone at the launch time when it does come out. Now, for me, because I review phones, I typically give good value out of them, but most average consumers will not get a good value out of $1,000 price point, and people have responded. It's pretty evident with the iPhone XR being the hottest selling iPhone. That kind of makes sense. It's the cheapest of the three, and you can see consumers are responding to that. Now, it will cost you financially because not only, of course, it's going to be $1,000 plus at the start of buying the phone, but they also typically lose so much value. This is very evident on Samsung devices. You don't see it quite as fast on the iPhone devices, but at the same time, I gotta say that in terms of smartphones, it's some of the fastest decreasing value of all of electronics. Cameras do not decrease in value this fast. Audio equipment doesn't decrease in value this fast. I would even say laptops and computers are a little bit, smartphones just really fast decline in how much money you can get back out of them. So buying a phone at launch can cost you if you're not the type of person who's going to keep it long term and get the value out of it. Now, I do want to add to that, if you are a demanding user of your phone and you really get a lot of joy out of using the greatest and latest or the latest and greatest smartphone, I don't actually think it's a problem. But from a point of a mistake, it could be a mistake if you're not that type of person. So those are 8 phone buying mistakes that will cost you depending on who you are. Now, I should mention that I did not add battery life. If you don't buy a phone with a sizable battery that works for your daily usage, that could be a mistake as well, because once you buy one of these later phones where the battery's embedded in there, then you're gonna have to buy a battery case, make your phone thick, stuff like that. Not always the best solution, but there are solutions still. You might want to buy the phone with the battery size that fits your type of needs. Typically, you got to get a really large phone these days to get really excellent battery life. In conclusion, over the years, I've made many smartphone mistakes, and this is everything I've learned about them. If you want to add any of the mistakes you have made in the past when buying a smartphone, please go ahead and share those down below. If you found this video helpful, entertaining, informing, do me a favor, click that like button for me. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more. Nick here helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.